Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining a minute early. We'll give it another minute or two here and let the rest of the folks who are planning to join uh, get in here before we actually get started on the content. But thank you for getting in here. Welcome, and hope you're having a great day. All right, I'm back. Thank you all for waiting, and thanks for joining. We're going to go ahead and get started, although people may be continuing to roll in as we get into the content here. So hopefully you're in the right place. This is the final policy release webinar on the horticultural lighting version 4.0 technical requirements, which was released recently. The agenda that we have for today is some introductions, go through a few of our webinar logistics, encourage you how to use the chat and question pane. We'll do a kind of high-level overview of the goals and timeline for version 4.0. We'll dig into the requirements that have changed. We'll have a few slides on fees, and then I'll hand it over to Aaron, who will be taking us through the application processing and horde operations side of version 4.0 to help better prepare you for the upcoming version 4.0 applications. And then we'll have time at the end for questions and answers. But so even though we'll have questions and answer at the end, definitely feel free to enter your questions throughout the webinar as they come to you. And we'll either be able to respond directly in the chat to you or answer it at the end. So presenters today from the DLC side of things, myself, technical manager for a horticulture program and leading our SSL6 policy development, and Aaron Feldman, our associate director of operations. We'll both be presenting and doing Q&A support. So be patient with us if we don't answer your question right away, and thank you again for your attendance. In terms of webinar logistics, just a few things I wanted to call out here. The slides and webinar are being recorded and will be posted on our DLC news and events page on our website shortly after the presentation, maybe today or tomorrow, as soon as we can get to it, but it'll be available for your review there. And you are automatically muted. Doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. And especially if you're having any technical issues in terms of not being able to see the screen or choppiness or things like that, make sure you're actually using the chat panel for answering that. Graphics a little bit out of date since GoTo has been updated since this, but yeah, use the chat question for that, and you can direct it to whoever you want, and we'll do our best to make sure you're able to get those technical issues resolved. We do have question and answer time at the end, like I called out in the agenda. And as those questions are coming to you, or if you already have some, feel free to put them into the questions pane. Again, that graphic is a little bit out of date. And then Aaron or myself will be keeping an eye on that throughout the webinar today, answering them as they come in or calling them out at the end, kind of as needed. All right, so let's get into it. So just as a reminder, our horticultural technical requirements have a few different goals. We've been trying to do our best to achieve these goals throughout the various technical requirement revisions that we've had over the years. And first and foremost is really helping accelerate the adoption of energy efficient lighting in controlled environment agriculture and supporting adoption specifically of LEDs and better energy saving practices as lighting loads become more prominent in indoor horticulture. And supporting our members in these energy efficiency programs and implementer programs across North America, and aiding our QPL users and other stakeholders as they come to our horticultural qualified products list, trying to identify select products that are eligible for rebates specific for their applications. Last and not least, making sure that we're protecting the integrity and value of the QPL for all of our stakeholders, especially those members who are offering incentives to help buy down the cost and support the adoption of these LED horticultural lights. So these goals are being achieved in various ways throughout all of our technical requirement revisions, and I'll be talking through some of the major changes that we've had in version 4. A few major revisions that are included in version 4 are first and foremost increasing our efficacy threshold. This is the photosynthetic photon efficacy as defined by Asabi SX40, and kind of is the baseline and kind of highest value threshold that we have for all of our listings. We're also looking, we also removed the lamp category pathways in version 4.0, and I'll speak to that in a few slides from now. And then we're also making a few kind of clarifications and enhancements through various sections of our special considerations and the technical requirements specific to more niche or advanced product types, including spectrally tunable products and those products that are either dynamically configurable or DC powered, and the kind of distinction between those two that we've seen over the years. Speaking more specifically also to some LM80 applicability requirements that we've introduced, and a few other kind of smaller changes. All right, in terms of timeline, the policy was released recently, and we are expecting the following timeline to be kind of what's the next steps. So we're looking at having version 4 applications accepted starting April 18th, and the kind of last day to submit those version 3 applications the day before that. So we'll have a clean transition. Only new version 4 applications will be accepted April 18th. And July 25th is kind of our goal for wrapping up all of the in-process version 3.0 applications that'll need to be submitted either already today or definitely by April 17th. October 31st is the deadline for which any currently listed or version 3.0 listed product by July 25th that needs to update to version 4. That'll give us, a couple of months to actually make sure that those are all completed in review and can support the clean horticultural version 4.0 QPL going into 2026, with that delisting of version 3.0 listed products that haven't updated on January 5th. So starting January 5th, it'll be only horticultural version 4.0 listed products on our Hort QPL. Again, the high-level details for the changes that we're seeing in Hort version 4 are described below. All right, and getting into our kind of baseline requirements, these are the requirements that all products that are listed on the horticultural QPL have to meet. And again, there are those special considerations for those additional product types beyond these, but these are the baseline for everything that's listed on the horticultural QPL. So in the first table that you see in our technical requirements kind of lays them all out, starting with things like safety certification, warranty, long-term performance requirements, power quality requirements, and efficacy. The only changes that you'll see here in version 4.0 are an increase to our efficacy threshold, which is now equal to or above 2.5 micromoles per joule, up from 2.3 micromoles per joule under version 3.0. And again, just showing here very literally crossing out the lamps warranty because there are no more LAMP pathways under version 4.0. Otherwise, the rest of the requirements are still in place as they were, with the same thresholds as they were under version 3.0. And for a little bit of background, with version 1, the horticultural program proposed and has been following a major revision cycle where every 2 years, sometimes 3 years, we propose to increase our efficacy threshold to delist the bottom 15% of all listed products on the qualified products list. We didn't actually do this with our first major revision under version 2. We did do it with version 3, where the efficacy threshold went from 1.9 to 2.3 micromoles per joule. And we've done it again with version 4 with a slightly smaller increase this time, and the actual PPE threshold being 2.5 micromoles per joule or greater under version 4.0. So a little bit less than a 10% increase. And how it actually kind of was realized is, like I said, looking at that bottom 15% of all listed products. So here you kind of see a nice plot that shows the spread of photosynthetic photon efficacy of all the horticultural listed products under version 3. And that kind of tail end of the lowest 15% will be delisted or need to be updated with new testing that shows these products have been updated and meet our new PPE threshold under version 4, which is 2.5 micromoles per joule. The numbers that you see above the bars here are corresponding to first what they were under the draft release back in November, and then what they are as of a couple of days ago whenever I was updating this slide. So slightly different than the draft proposal, but still very close to 15%. I think it's a little bit less than that now, actually, because products keep getting more and more efficacious. One of the other major changes, like I mentioned, is the removal of LAMP eligibility. So a few years ago, under version 2.1, our technical requirements introduced some pathways to qualify 2 types of horticultural lamps, those being LED replacement lamps for linear fluorescent lamps and MOGO-based HID lamps. Since then, we've had no listings to these pathways, which is a little bit depressing because it was a pretty big push. But responding kind of to the market need for them, and with no uptake, version 4 has removed these eligibility pathways for all types of horticultural lamps. That being said, we will be keeping an eye on the market and kind of more specifically on how we can best support where products are being either manufactured or sold to, and help best kind of streamline those incentive applications so that these products can participate in DLC where it's required or where it's referenced either in code or for incentive eligibility. Specifically, things that we have in mind to keep monitoring are things like photoperiodic lamps and floricultural applications. But if you have a specific need and think that the DLC needs to put it back in, definitely let us know, and we can put that in our scope for technical requirement revisions moving forward. Another major change that we had proposed in the draft and continued and actually implementing in the version 4 final policy is for dynamically configurable products. Similarly to lamps, this pathway was introduced under version 2.1 of our Hort technical requirements and really tried to isolate the kind of static performing product. So in those that are dynamically configurable, where there's kind of mini light bars that are attached to a single power supply, and they can be 3 here and 2 there, or kind of be shuffled around and are dynamically configurable, we really targeted in and kind of created this DC specific pathway. Under version 4.0, in response to all of the feedback we've gotten since version 2.1, we've relaxed that requirement, and now these dynamically configurable products that are specifically being developed and sold as a single AC powered fixture can qualify as AC powered or as DC powered if you'd like. So hopefully that'll improve your process and make sure that the information that shows up on the Hort QPL aligns as best as it can with your marketing information. Another change that we've made here is for spectrally tunable products by introducing two distinct categories of spectrally tunable products, those that are being sold with either predefined spectra and can tune within those spectral set points, or those that are customizably, have a customizable spectra, right? And essentially where it's, maybe you're using like 3 different primaries or more, and you can kind of tune within a very broad range in the color space and have much more precise and dynamic control of the spectral output of that product. These clarifications, though, do not require any new testing on spectrally tunable products compared to version 3.0, and is really just an operational efficiency for us. So that way we better understand and communicate your spectral tunable product throughout the application process and how it shows up on the QPL. And lastly, some additional clarification enhancements that we have in the Horticulture version 4 technical requirements are as follows. First, there's been a lot of issues with regards to LM80 applicability claims. So version 4 draft 1 and final requirements introduced and maintained a plus or minus 15 nanometer delta between 2 distinct colors for these LM80 applicability claims, where distinct colors are still defined by the LED manufacturer and is not intended to restrict these applicability claims based on specific manufacturing tolerances or binning options for that LED type. Also, we're updated our standards references so that the latest industry standards for LM79 and TM33 are supported. I think LM79 has a 2024 version now, actually, and that'll be also supported. The IES TM21 pathway will be supported. Various other changes. These are just a couple examples that I've shown here. And then we've corrected language for our power quality requirement for total harmonic distortion current, which just had a sign pointing in the wrong direction. So small change there. But yeah, that's basically it in terms of changes that we had under version 4.0, the most important one being that efficacy increase. Otherwise, the rest are kind of aimed at improving those application efficiencies, better streamlining, our understanding and your application process of your products. So just to recap, those few key updates that we did in version 4 are increasing efficacy, removal of lamps due to lack of uptake, and those clarifications that I just went through for spectrally tunable products, dynamically configurable products now being able to list as DC or AC, and those changes, or rather communications and what we already had in terms of review process for LM80 applicability and other smaller changes. Again, another look at the timeline, which Aaron will also be getting into a bit more detail in, is shown here. Version 4 applications being accepted April 18th, the last day to submit or try to qualify a product under version 3.0 being April 17th. The need to transition our QPL by the end of the year, setting a deadline of October 31st for actually submitting any updates for currently listed version 3.0 products to update to version 4 with a clean horticultural version 4.0 qualified products list going into 2026 with the delisting on January 5th, 2026. Now, just a little bit of information on fees. There are a few changes under version 4.0, which will be taking effect the same day as version 4.0 applications start. Starting with, since 85% of products are kind of already meet our suite of requirements under version 3.0 and should have a much easier time of updating to version 4.0. The star here is really showing that kind of update process being non-performance affecting updates and per family of $500. This has not changed, and it was the same fee that we have today under version 3.0. Those products that are below the threshold need to update some things so that they meet the new threshold, retest, and relist. Will be considered performance affecting update, and will have a fee of $850 per parent product. with additional fees kind of as they already are today, with a few changes for additional LED types and spectral tuning, because these are associated with more reveal. Similarly, private label fees are increasing from $750 to $850 with the same child fee as under version 3.0. Again, this will also start whenever we start accepting version 4 applications, April 18th. And then lastly, for new products that are qualifying under version 4.0, there's some small changes and around the range of 15% for level 1 and level 2 applications, where each parent product fee, or the highest level fee for those that have to be tested, increasing from $1,000 to $1,150 per parent product. And similarly, as shown 2 slides ago, additional LED types and spectral tuning fees have increased as well. But for the most part, fees are largely the same. And if you have any questions about them or how they relate to your applications and your products, definitely feel free to reach out, and we'll be happy to help identify your testing needs and help you prepare for your version 4 applications. And with that, I'll be handing it over to Aaron Feldman, who will be talking more specifically about how these V4 changes relate to the application process. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Casey. And thank you, everyone, for joining today. As Casey mentioned, I'll be talking through how the policy changes impact the submission process. It's a beautiful spring day here in Cleveland, Ohio, so I'll try to keep it short and sweet. So for the agenda for the operations side, just talking on the transition. I know Casey touched on that a bit already on the timeline, so we'll go through that quickly. Then just about how those changes impact the submission of applications. Also talk on the simplified upgrade path. So I'll go into more detail on that in a couple slides. And then also touch on the expedite process that we have ongoing. So I will go through this slide very quickly because Casey touched on it quite a bit already. Just April 17th, last date to submit your 3.0, starting on the 18th. Any applications that are created or haven't been submitted yet will need to be submitted as a 4.0 application. So when you go into the application portal and you create an application on the 18th, that'll be a 4.0 application. Your 3.0 applications will continue to be processed through until July 25th. Then just to touch on the details of the submission impacts, within the application Excel form, there's some changes due to the removal of lamps. And so a couple columns have been removed from that. And the forms will still be backwards compatible. So if you have already started on a 3.0 application Excel form, and you don't submit it by the 17th, you could still submit that by the 18th for your horticultural product. If it's a lamp, those would no longer be accepted starting the 18th, but we have not seen uptake on those. Similarly, on the questionnaire, there'll be some questions removed for lamps. Then to talk on the AC/DC definition change in regard to the dynamically configurable. As Casey mentioned in 3.0, if there is a static set of components, such as shown here with your 2 light bars and a power supply, those light bars, because they could be moved around, it had to submit through DC. Moving forward, you can submit that product as AC or DC. So that dashed green line is what you can submit in version 4.0 as an AC product. In 4.0, you could also submit a single light bar as a DC product, where in the past, in version 3, you had to submit that light bar as a DC only. So 2 pathways that you can use now for to qualify your product types like this and then show the performance on the QPL. Just a quick note on Alameda applicability, that we're participating in the industry standards development for Alameda applicability, and look forward to continuing that work and potentially including updates based on industry standards in the future. Then on the spectrally tuning, in addition to the different categories noted here, the customizable and the predefined, within the application Excel form, there's more setting options. So some folks have a lot of different settings and different controllability for your different horticultural products. So there's more options there in the Excel form. Then on the questionnaire, just noting as you go in to fill that out, there'll be some additional questions regarding AC and DC to clarify if you're selling that product with a power supply, and then requiring that power source test report. Then for specialty tuning, noting if it's a customizable or predefined. And that differentiation will help us understand what types of testing is needed and make sure your reported data is appropriately filled out. Just to give a quick example of a spectrally tunable in the new categorization. So you can see here, there's the customizable spectra at the top and then predefined spectra at the bottom. And these would represent two different products on the QPL with two different variations of spectrally tuning categories as we have it defined in the policy. So the customizable spectra, the settings displayed on the QPL are based on the LED that's being used or powered, and the performance on the QPL will show each control channel, and so that would be for each LED or white, blue, red, and far red for an example here, with each of those set to the max and all the other ones set to the minimum as feasible through your product capabilities. If alternatively, if your product does not have that capability to control channels independently like that, and you just have settings for end users, so for specifically spectrum designated to yield certain results. So for example, here there's roots or veg and greens and blooms for different applications. And for each of those settings, you would have a specific current for your LEDs to get your desired results. So those are the two different categories. The testing in version 4 doesn't change, just helps us understand how your product functions and what's needed to confirm it meets the technical requirements. Next is the simplified upgrade path. So the version 4 technical requirements update primarily has that efficacy change increase, and then other changes are designed to make the process simpler for submitters and reviewers, as well as make the QPL keep the integrity of the QPL strong. And with that, those changes do not require updated data if your products have not been updated. So for listed product families where all of the products meet the version 4 requirements, there'll be a new application type where you could submit. So in these types of applications, the submitter will just select the family or families they wish to qualify as version 4, confirm that those products are still being sold, and that the performance and design are the same and there are no other changes. And then those applications will be reviewed and those products will be upgraded to version 4. So there will not be any need for application Excel form or updated documentation if your products have not had these sorts of changes and you don't need any performance to be updated. Note that the timeframes and fees will apply similarly for these types of applications. And then lastly, to note, we have an ongoing expedite application pilot going on now in the application portal. So as you're submitting applications, you can expedite your application for a 1650 fee, and that will essentially have the reviewer response time. So there's no changes to the requirements or review process. Just the reviewers will be allotted half amount of time that that are currently posted in the review timeframes page on the website to kind of take the applications through the next stages of the review. And with that, we'll open it up for questions.
All right. One question that just came in here: does DLC have a recommended partner that can help us through the testing and application for these certifications for our LED bars? We don't have a recommendation for you, but we will accept testing from any appropriately accredited lab. So we do have information on our website with regards to a list of LM79 approved labs that we've already seen come through, but it doesn't mean it's exhaustive of all of those that actually exist in the market. And as long as basically any lab that you decide to work with, whether it's internal or external, has the appropriate accreditations for all of the standard tests that we require, we'll work with you to get those products qualified. Anything you want to add to that, Aaron?
No, that about covered it.
Question here about, will the V3 requirements still be in effect until January 2026? V3 products will be shown on the QPL throughout the rest of 2025, but we'll only be qualifying horticultural version 4.0 products starting April 18th. Other than those that have already been submitted and are already in process prior to that, wrapping up middle or close to the end of July. So you may see some new version 3 products get listed kind of throughout the few upcoming months. But if you do have those products and need to get listed, get your applications in now before April 17th, because that's the last day that we're going to accept version 3 applications. Otherwise, it'll only be version 4. And then going into 2026, all of those version 3 products will need to have already submitted update applications or will be delisted in January.
There was a question on if you have products that meet the PPE threshold and you'd like to update to version 4, can you provide an updated test report with better performance to upgrade the performance on the QPL? So commonly LEDs increase their efficacy and performance over time through manufacturing upgrades. And so you may have a desire to show that upgraded performance on the QPL. And so you certainly can do that. And you can just submit a typical update application. So if you have a 3.0 product and you'd like to update the performance and update it to version 4, you'll submit an update application starting on April 18th. And with the application Excel form filled out with the updated performance as well as the test data to demonstrate the performance.
All right, a question here about sharing specific information for places where there are incentives or rebates for DLC qualified products. Yeah, I'll be able to help out with that. I'll have a contact information on the slide after we wrap up question and answers here to help more specifically. But it is going to be kind of specific to where that product or project is actually taking place and those incentive programs that may exist there or not. There are also certain states like Massachusetts and Illinois where, for example, in cannabis facilities, there are code compliance pathways that point to the DLC, in addition to custom pathways for actually getting those products through the compliance requirements. But DLC helps out with that, and I can point you to those also as well. Also, we do have on our website a list of DLC member programs that are offering incentives and rebates for horticultural LED products. Specific to grants, though, I don't know if there are any grants for it.
There was a question on the specially tunable example. Casey, I was wondering if you could jump back to that.
Yeah.
This example here is showing the different settings that are displayed as reported data on the QPL. And that's kind of the category that's categorization is the part that's changing here. And this is the reported data for each setting. In order to qualify your products for a customizable spectra, the testing needs to be done with at the maximum power consumption. And so that's going to be the maximum for all your LEDs. And that is the setting that needs to be tested for qualification. These settings shown here are what will be shown in the spectrally tunable section on the QPL to show the how your products perform across your spectrally tunable range.
Exactly. Yeah. So that max output, max wattage one will be actually what's qualified against the efficacy threshold, whereas these kind of other customizable spectra are not. So, for example, the max far red, if it's on a channel by itself, and white, blue, and red in this example are all off, it's going to have a really hard time meeting the PPE threshold because it's fully outside of the part range. So that's why we're just kind of gathering and reporting that information so that QPL users can consider it and understand the capabilities, but not evaluating each kind of customizable spectral set point against our efficacy threshold.
And there was another question on the timeline that I could speak to specifically about the October 31st date. Yes. So there was a question, if you're submitting a new product, can you submit for version 4.0, can you submit it after that October 31st date? And that answer is yes. So that October 31st date is just the last date to submit your version 3 products to update to version 4 so that they don't get delisted by that January 5th date. So there's those applications will be processed and reviewed, and that timing between the October 31st and January 5th is to help process those through, so that we minimize anyone from getting delisted that has an application that's in process. So after October 31st, if you have new products, you can continue to submit those, and even if you have updated products, you can submit those. We just don't have won't be able to guarantee that those won't get delisted by the January 5th date.
All right. It does seem like questions are starting to slow down now. So we'll give another minute or two for anyone to add any other questions you may have, or as always, kind of reach out to our horticulture inbox or Aaron or myself directly. Oops, if you have our contact information. And oops, I think my screen stopped sharing. 1 second. And we'll be able to, get in touch with you and help answer your questions. I'll paste the contact information for you all into the chat pane here, in case you don't already have it. I'm trying to get my screen to share again. Sorry about that.
Might be a sign, Casey.
All right. So I put the contact info in the chat, but it's also up here on the screen in case you don't see the chat. Well, hopefully my screen sharing now. And again, thank you all for attending. We appreciate your participation with the DLC and listing your products to the QPL, or requiring them, or offering incentives for them. Whatever stakeholder type you are, we appreciate you. And if you have ideas for things you think that the technical requirements need to address in a future revision, definitely reach out. We'd love to make sure that we're kind of providing the best solution that we can to support as broad of an audience as we can, and make sure that we're considering those kind of technical needs, application specific needs. If you have questions again about how Hort V4 is going to impact your product designs or your qualification process, feel free to reach out. Basically anything. If you want to reach out, we'll do our best to help. And thanks again for attending.
Thanks, everyone.